Hello and welcome to another edition of Anime Review. My name is Zach. I'm your host. Joining me, as always, is Nusha
Hey,
and Deanna.
Hello.
Hello. So yes, another week in anime. It's actually kind of an interesting week because so we're covering up a lot of course, the different shows that we've been watching, and of course Evangelion. But it appears there's going to be a hiatus for not a hiatus, actually, just a delay for a couple of different shows. So next week, we're not going to be able to cover a couple of different things. So let me just jump right over to our recap in the week to kind of explain what I mean. So, for example, Gigi no Taro, which is the show that I typically cover for the podcast, did not have an episode yesterday. I don't know what the delay was for. I don't know if it's a holiday. I don't think it is. So that won't have a new episode until next week. And while we're covering Double Decker today, it apparently won't have a new episode. I mean, we're covering last week's episode, last Sunday's episode. There wasn't a new one today. That's, I guess, the case of that. So it specifically said on Crunchyroll that it was the Japanese air date. So it's not like, just their website or something. It's just premiering over in Japan anyway. So just a heads up that it's going to be a delay for that, but I'm sure we'll mention it again in the next episode. I figured to let people know that's why that's not happening. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the shows that we have been seeing, and we'll begin, of course, as always, with Banana Fish. So, Deanna, how did this episode of Banana Fish go? I know when you sent this image, you also captioned it saying, that you hate this person. So, what's going on?
Okay, so before I get into that, I think the number of times Ash has gotten kidnapped exceeds the times Aaron has, and that's just so sad. Oh,
Again?
but Jessica, oh yeah,
Oh, God.
Jessica is back, and so are the love quarrels between her and Max. So let's just give it up for Max, who's probably the best character in the show. He's just constantly supporting and understanding Ash, especially when they tried to get rid of the pictures that Golzine took of the children that he used for his prostitution. So Ash was kind of like, "Oh, you can just use my pictures," but then Max just burns the pictures and says, like, it's fine to like just leave your past behind, and that you're more than a victim, like you're human. So that scene really like got to me. So if Max or Jessica gets killed, I'm going to riot. So, okay, now we're getting another villain who literally has an army. So Colonel Fox, who's holding Max at gunpoint, he is quote unquote a dead man who really seems like he's like the furthest away from being like a compassionate person. Like, because at least with Blanca and Yue, like they kind of have this unique tie to Ash, and then there's like they show emotions of like hesitation or regret, but like this guy just like straight up kills people for fun. So
Military man.
I
Oh my
feel
god.
like with his introduction, I'm starting to like feel the fatigue of the suffering that these characters have to endure, like just for the sake of toying with our emotions. So I was just like, at this point, just let it all be done with, and yeah, I'm not gonna be surprised anymore.
Kill them all off? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh god.
but but Lau is up to something. So I want to ask Nusha, like, what do you think he has planned?
I really don't know. Like, there's so many twists and turns, and I don't really know what kind of dirt he can possibly have on Lao. Maybe something involving Shorter,
Hmm.
but I don't know. We literally just got introduced to this character like last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really don't know anything about him or what we could have on him.
Ugh, stop.
I know. It's it's interesting that you brought up like the introduction of another villain and like the fatigue and everything that comes with that because I've kind of been feeling that too. Like it almost feels like we've been treading water a little bit. Cuz like you said everyone gets kidnapped like every week someone gets kidnapped and then the next week they're freed and then someone else gets kidnapped and it's almost like we're repeating this same game of cat and mouse over and over again, and we're even repeating beats now, like Golzine hiring a new like super pro assassin to capture Ash, and then he gets caught, and then he gets freed, and I don't know. It feels like the final encounter, like between maybe Ash and Golzine, or however this is going to play out, should have happened a while ago, but we just kind of continue this exchange.
Mhm.
But I don't know. That's something I kind of mentioned last week. But something I did like about this episode was we kind of get to see Ash fall into like the leadership role of like this underground world. He's kind of reigning in both Kane and Sing, who are the leaders of their own gangs respectively, but Ash is kind of like reining them all in because they tend to get kind of emotional, especially when their men are hurt. And that's kind of something both Golzine and Colonel Fox are taking advantage of. They're hoping by making them kind of irrational and erratic, Ash, when he tries to rein them in, is going to let his guard down, and there's going to be an opportunity for them to capture him. And it's kind of nice seeing him. I don't know. I don't want to say it's nice because we don't want this young kid to be involved in this underground world at all. But seeing him kind of cooperate with these two gives me a little bit of hope that maybe there's a life for him where he can just kind of, I don't know, find a place for himself in this underground world and maybe stop crime from the inside. I don't know. It's very optimistic thinking, but I just want to see him go to Japan with AG and be happy, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like the mother of all death flags has been placed on this kid, so
Uh, for the
mhm.
last episode, it's going to be 40 minutes long, by the way.
Wait,
Oh.
when's the last episode?
It's not going to be until like after Christmas, but they made an announcement that it'll be 40 minutes long.
Oh,
So that's
wow.
like 2 episodes.
I'm not ready. Just more pain for these characters.
Oh, that's when it's like going to be a massacre, I imagine. When they need 40 minutes to let everything settle. So
Oh,
Probably.
don't
It's just
say
going to be
that.
like one by one, they're going to kill all of Ash's friends and
give it a
just see
minute.
him go through this. Yeah, pretty much. Let it all sink in. But yeah, if anything happens to Max, I'm throwing my computer out. I'm done.
Mhm.
Oh my lord. All right, so on that depressing note, it's always great when you have like this weird contrast right at the beginning of the show, and so we got Banana Fish that's almost always sort of depressing in a way, or at least it's somber or melancholy. So we move from that into a show that's a little more lighthearted, even if it does have its fair share of drama, and that's Bloom Into You. Literally turn up the bloom on this image. It's kind of bright, but yes. What was the show like, Deanna, so far?
This episode focused on the sports festival. So I noticed that the studio likes to portray Yu's loneliness with water. So the scene that you see, she's talking to Maki about her feelings for Toko, and it really stood out to me. So as soon as like Maki asks her if she's lonely, like all you hear is like a rush of water, almost like you're being plunged into it, and then you have the water effects across the whole scene. So whenever Yu says she can't reach love, water comes in, and I think that's one of the benefits that the anime has over the manga is to be able to symbolize the character's emotions like visually. So this is also the episode where Yu's beginning to feel her heart beating fast for Toko, but like she denies that it's her developing feelings. So there's a scene where both of them get intimate after the festival, and Toko wants Yu to initiate a kiss as a reward, but then Yu refuses, saying it's weird that she initiates when she doesn't have feelings. But like
Hmm.
once the tongue action begins, Yu feels differently. So
Understandable.
we also got to see the sensei and coffee shop owner again, aka the adult lesbian couple. And it's just adorable how the latter came to the festival to support the former. I also got goosebumps when Yu watches Toko like run during the track race and an insert song starts playing. So I kind of just want at this point I would just want you to admit that she likes Toko, but then like I kind of understand where she's coming from because it's like she's accepted that she can't fall in love with someone, so when it does happen she doesn't believe it and she tries to make excuses almost like she's not worthy or capable of it. So basically she's just in denial. But it does worry me, however, like if Toko changes her feelings too after finding out that Yu likes her. So it's just a matter of like they have to be very open about their feelings and then where is that going to lead. So
That's pretty great. Sorry, a little distracted here for a moment here because I just realized that I don't have an image for Double Decker, so I was kind of panicking for a moment there. But yeah, I was like, oh, she's done. Oh god, oh god.
Panicking
So
is a good way to say it.
hold on.
Panic.
I'm gonna while you guys talk amongst yourselves for a second here while I get this
Are you gonna grab
together.
an image now?
Yes, it's important.
Is it that necessary?
Yes.
Okay.
Take the focus off me. What kind of professional are you? You're putting all the focus on the person and trying to fix something. That's
I'm
not
sorry, you brought it up first.
Not cool.
So we watched Mirai not that long ago.
Oh,
Cool. Yeah,
that's
we
right.
should probably mention that too. Yes. Now you want me to
Yeah.
find another image? What do you?
Yeah, go
You're gonna
grab an
kill
image
me.
from Mirai.
You're gonna kill me right now. Oh my god. All right.
But yeah, what did you guys think of Mirai? Because it wasn't a completely orthodox movie, like the formatting of it all, but I'm interested in what you guys thought because it was still a fun watch from start to end, if you ask me.
I think the movie was very characteristic of how the director directs his movies. Because if you watch Summer Wars, like it was kind of like that, where it shifts between like this different realm versus like reality. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I really liked that format for Mirai because it's like Kun-chan, he's like going through these different lessons, and like he comes back to reality, like you know, being a good boy and not a spoiled brat. So
Though his voice acting would lead you to think otherwise.
yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of odd. Like there wasn't a main like antagonistic
It never
entity
is.
here.
I mean,
Yeah, it seems
that's Mamoru Hosato's. That's his films. Like, there's never really that
Yeah.
kind of approach, and that there's always something going on. Like Wolf Children was a lot like that as well. Even if like there's certain events that you like stick with you a lot from that film, it's that for the most part, it's like this mom raising two kids. You know, that's kind of the portrayal in there, and that's like the other movies too. Summer Wars was kind of like that. Even if there was this big battle going on. In between that, there was always just these scenes of like these family members getting along with each other. So yeah, like for me, Mirai was very good. Like it was, I will say, yeah, sometimes it was kind of like a little jarring at times when he's like, oh, we're going back into this fantasy land, oh, we're going back to this fantasy land. But it was highly entertaining. All the characters were great, especially older Mirai was great. Especially when she got embarrassed after like he was pointing out, like, you know, who do you like, you know, who do you want to get married with, that's why you want to take these dolls down. And she's like super embarrassed, and I love the animation quality as a result of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great part. And honestly, I'm glad we stuck around for the post credits because they had an interview with the director, Mamoru Hosoda. So he just kind of talked about how that, you know, when you're taking a kid to kindergarten, you're basically reliving your childhood because you get to see through someone else's eyes, you know, going to kindergarten, then of course grade school, high school, so on and so forth. And so you get like a chance to sort of see that through someone else. And there's like this, he kind of expressed it as like there's this link that we all have with each other as a result of that. Like that goes back for generations and generations. We're not so different, you know, because we're all helping each other carry on through our lives. And, you know, it got like a big different perspective. And it was great to see these two kids like trying to bounce out of each other because I am one of 5 kids in my family, so I can only imagine how much stress that was for my mother having to, you know, take care of every single younger kid as they came into the world, trying to balance that and show that the other person's not being ignored or anything like that. Because I'll admit, like, I do remember like times even as a kid where it's like I felt like I was being ignored, even if I was the youngest. You know, it was like she was always trying to juggle that, and since my dad wasn't always there, it was kind of difficult for her to handle all that stuff. And so it made me have like a whole new appreciation for the job of a parent, whether it's the father or the mother, really, because they were both very important there. And I liked how they admitted, you know, that we're not perfect parents, and no one is really. And they just kind of said, you know, you might be a good parent, not a bad one, not a great one, just a good one. And I thought that was kind of a very nice way to, cap that off, to bookend the whole movie like that. So yeah,
I
liked
do
it.
I do like the gender role reversal, how the mom is the one that goes out to work while the dad's at home being like the housewife.
Yes.
So I really like that.
Yeah, that was a nice little touch. I also really the the house that they lived in. Like, I just want to walk around in that house.
It's so
It's an
cool.
architecture, yeah, architect.
Yeah, they establish it like, oh, the dad's an architect, so he has this crazy taste in like what kind of home he wants to live in. But it just looks so nice. Like, I want to just take a stroll around that house.
It was pretty great. I love
Mhm.
that too, and it was also kind of difficult at times to understand like what generation we were in because they go through the the lifeline, the generations of the different characters. But I thought that was a really cool touch, and how
Yeah.
the director was talking about how that's many of these characters were inspired by actual people that he knew. So yeah, just a gorgeous movie, well, also very well much worth a watch. If you're looking for something kind of slice of life a little bit, but also very heartwarming on that same vein.
Mhm.
So,
I'd like to show my mom that movie because apparently when I was a kid, I would always ask her to take my brother and sister back to the hospital.
oh, you're an awful kid. That's why your mom doesn't like you, right?
I guess I was super like jealous of the attention they were getting, and there was one moment where I was like, "Can you just take them back? I'm kind of over it." But I'd love to see her reaction to that.
Oh my gosh,
Oh my god.
I would love to see it. I think that this is definitely a movie that like there were kids there, of course, too, watching that movie. So it's not like um, it's definitely a movie that anyone at any age can enjoy, can appreciate for that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely, it's well worth a watch. I think it's still in the previews. So I don't know if is it still going at all, or like is it still in theaters?
I think
Maybe
it is.
for another week.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's in a lot of different theaters right now, so I think that people should check it out and see for themselves. I think yeah, I don't have an image for that, so people can look that up. I was gonna pull up an image from Mirai, but that's a good point. Just go see it. That's my recommendation. I don't know if you guys agree. So
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Agreed.
great,
Hmm.
awesome. All right. So on that note, finally, because I was scrambling still, because I still can't find an image, but we're just gonna use this one that actually has a subtitle on it, because that's how it is. Double Decker, Doug and Kirill. So yeah, uh, you might be kind of surprised by this image, but that's how it is. So apparently, in the last episode, we talked about how Doug was kidnapped by the Esperanza gang and beaten up and tortured. Now he's in the hospital. So Doug is busy hiding from Kirill, so he doesn't have to return to duty for a bit. He's like taking like a well worth vacation. So there's also this investigation that's going on over a group of Anthem users who are also patients at the hospital they're currently in. It turns out while the doctors were working out a care plan for the recovering Anthem users, they forced the patients themselves forced their way out of the hospital using the same drug and wound up dead. So the drug, of course, would give them the physical ability to leave the hospital on their own accord. So at that same hospital, though, Kirill meets the son of a man who is recovering from Anthem and is basically on his death door. So that's kind of the big setup, is that there's the son who's trying to take care of his father while he's in the hospital and trying to find ways to appreciate that, even if the father's kind of accepted his fate, that he's not going to be around to see his child grow up, which is a very tragic approach in this episode, a very tragic angle. So thankfully, Kirill has this genius ability, because apparently he liked bioengineering. He picked that up from a manga that he liked. He's like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. Genetic engineering. I'm gonna take on this." So he understands how Anthem affects the human body. So as a result, the doctors there wanted to approve Anthem for medical use with the military. However, it appears the doctors, and I don't know if this was very accurately portrayed. It's like, are the doctors working for the Esperanza gang, or are they just um, they were doing something that was they thought that was on the right track, but the Esperanza gang was working from the shadows without their knowledge. Like, Deanna, did you understand like what the angle with that was?
It sounds like they were working for Esperanza, but like with their own um ideas on where to take Anthem.
It's weird
So
because like they kept the people in the same hospital. It's like, you think that hospital was shut down and they would have moved the patients elsewhere. It's like, this is fucked up. We gotta go. But no, it's like it looks like that. Yeah. So I mentioned that the doctors are giving the different patients, including the ones that had passed away. They were giving them Anthem, followed by 5 drugs that make up the anti-AMS bullets that that the group uses to find the right ratio to reverse engineer the bullets themselves. They can figure them out and find the balance, and that way they can kind of protect themselves from the bullets that stop them in their tracks. So all that leads up to, like, for example, this image was very heartwarming. It was basically about how the son wanted to show the father that, yeah, we just put on this little thing here to show that, yeah, I want to show you that, it says, yeah, he's going to get married. It might be a pretty woman or ugly one, or even a guy like this failure, because he gives Kirill a very hard time throughout this show, which was pretty great. He's like, I might not even get married, but I want to let you know that I will, of course, be working towards the future, and you can, you can believe that I will be doing my best, even when you're not around. So that was a very sad turn on that one. But yeah, but right at the end, we also see Kirill being approached by the military to join their side. That's what, Danny, you mentioned. That was in the post-credits scene in the last episode. I watched that before I, of course, went to this one, but we'll see how that goes. So any other thoughts about this episode, though, Deanna?
I do like that Kirill is getting more of the spotlight, especially as someone who's more than capable of being a cop now.
Yes.
Since, like, he's a genius. So that scene where he doesn't hesitate to shoot that one guy to reverse the anthem, that really stood out to me, because he's doing his job, like, without hesitating or anything. And the fact that he is a genius, it's kind of like even characters who seem dumb at surface level actually have multiple layers.
Yes.
So I really appreciated that. And then, of course, Doug, he literally, like, takes a backseat, or, like, he hangs back and takes a vacation, which is, like, it's his excuse for staying at the hospital longer to quote unquote recover.
Peak Doug.
Yeah. So I feel like since we're seeing more of Valerie, I assume the show's gonna narrow down the plot. So hopefully, everything concludes nicely.
Yeah. Where's Bamboo Man? I mean, is this? Are we in the last? Are we in one more episode? Is episode 13 the last one?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have 3 more.
3. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's a little bit longer than typical. It's weird that we're already getting into the next season almost. But yeah, so that was, I think it was another very strong episode. Like, this show continues to deliver, whereas some of the other shows this season haven't always been perfect. But we've got another show that we can talk about that's been pretty good. Go to Kamuy 2.
I'm already laughing.
Yes, I know you're already laughing because I know what image you sent me, and you sent us that right after you watched it last week. So what's going on at the bathhouse?
So this episode got gay and horny real fast.
Oh yeah. I've heard.
So I mentioned a beach episode last week, but I did not expect the fan service to be like this. So the gang, they hunt for sea otter, and then they're boiling the sea otter meat, which apparently is an aphrodisiac, and that's how it all went down.
Okay.
So like they start checking each other out, and then calling each other, like, hot and whatever. And then Tanigaki, his button pops off and his chest, like, is exposed. And then to kind of, like, combat this feeling, they just they do sumo wrestling. So it just got really, like, gay. So,
really gay. That's
so one person did get laid, and Tanigaki, he hooked up with Inkarmat, who is the fortune teller woman, who I guess has developed feelings for him. So she, like, basically pounces on him in the morning while he's still sleeping. And then we also learned from Inkarmat that she used to know Ashiriba's dad when she was younger, and tells Ashiriba that her dad was murdered. His name was Wilka, not Noperabo, that's the person that everyone's trying to find in the prison. And so Inkarmat also tells Ashiriba that Kiroranke, who also knew Ashiriba's dad, is apparently the murderer and traitor. So with this information, Ashiriba confronts Kiroranke, and this whole miscommunication comes up with Ogata saying Inkarmat works for Tsurune, so no one knows who to believe. But then Sugimoto steps in and says, like, they're still going to find Noperabo, and then by then they'll find out if he's really Ashiriba's dad. So it's a mystery waiting to unfold, like who's the bad guy, and I assume there will be death too. So
The show's had it before, so we'll be surprised.
we're still meeting new characters, and there's this guy. I don't remember if his name was mentioned, but people called him New Kid. So he's trying to break Noperabo free, and the prison warden tells one of his men to get rid of the new kid because they found out that he works for Tsunami. So very quickly, the new kid brutally murders the prisoners who were labeled as such because of committing murder. So he's actually more like fearsome than the prisoners themselves. And so yeah, we're back to plowing through a lot of plot, but I have a feeling the season's going to end with the two opposing groups meeting at the prison ward, and then one or more they're gonna die. And yeah, it's been a good season, honestly. I love how it's been consistent with just the characterization, the humor, but also going through the plot without it feeling too rushed.
Mhm.
So I will say that Ashira's eyes looked bigger than usual. So despite like having that homoerotic sumo scene, the animation was kind of bad.
Oh, I mean, it's also the aphrodisiac. I imagine their pupils are gigantic. So, but yeah, that's
Well, she wasn't part of that, so
Oh,
thank
okay.
God.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I imagine, yeah, they're maybe saving their budget a little bit for that battle anyway. So, all right. Well, moving on from that homoeroticism to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Golden Wind, completely.
Just as much homoeroticism.
Yes. So how did this episode go? I'm not saying between him and the plane, but we'll see. What's going on?
So yeah, I discussed last week how they were finally able to defeat the members of the gang that were chasing them for Polpo's fortune. And so afterwards, we see Bruno and his gang are kind of recuperating, and they're in this public restroom. And this is where Bruno reveals that he's been hiding Polpo's fortune. He basically uses his stand and like creates a zipper in one of the urinals and opens it up, and like a bunch of jewelry and gold and money starts falling out. And so basically no one would have been able to get to this fortune other than Bruno, because it's like in his own little pocket dimension. And so immediately after getting the money, they meet another capo, like a high officer of the gang, and Bruno donates the money to him and the gang, and he's able to gain the position of capo himself. So he's officially taking over Polpo's post and ruling over the underworld of Naples. Um, of course, this is a gang-inspired uh, part, so he doesn't just get the title and like the respect; he also inherits all of the debts and missions that Polpo had before he killed himself. And one of those included protecting the boss's daughter. So apparently the boss had an affair and gave birth to the boss didn't give birth, but his wife gave birth to Trish, this young woman who is being targeted by another organization that's looking to overthrow the boss of Passione as the kingpin of like the drug operation of Italy. And so Polpo, since his entire gang was composed of stand users, this was kind of like their elite force, and he entrusted them with looking after Trish. And so now that he's dead, the task kind of falls onto Bruno's shoulders. Uh, and we meet Trish, and she kind of immediately outs herself to be quite the spoiled brat. She uses Fugo's jacket as like a towel to wipe her hands after using the bathroom, and she like immediately starts demanding that they go grocery shopping and picking up like very particular items for her.
Nice.
So yeah, basically they end up going to a safe house, and they give Narancha, basically the slowest member of of their group, the task of going out and getting groceries because his stand is so equipped to lose people who would tail him to the safe house. Uh, and of course, he goes and he's tailed. We meet a member of the organization that's looking to overthrow the boss of their gang, and they get into a little skirmish. And here we're actually shown Narancha's stand for the first time, which is Aerosmith. It's this tiny little remote plane that can rapidly fire off bullets and sometimes even drop like explosives. Not like a crazy inspired stand, but
Yeah.
it's something unique in the sense that we've never seen like a little plane, like a little toy plane act as the stand. But we have a quick little encounter. He drops one of those bombs in the car that they were in, and it looks like the enemy stand user is gone, but there's really no trace of him whatsoever. And it's revealed that his ability is shrinking down in size. Basically, anything that his stand touches, including himself, can shrink down in size, which again isn't the most inspired ability given what we just saw last week with Craftwork.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's, it's been a while since I've read part 5, but I'm sure there's some unique applications of it that I haven't seen yet. But basically, the episode ends with it being revealed that Narancia was struck by the stand, and so he's slowly shrinking down in size too. And the man who he was confronting is actually hiding in one of his pockets, waiting for Narancia to drive him over to the safe house. He also sees the bag of groceries in the back of his car and sees things like makeup and very particular clothing and stuff like that. And he's able to surmise that Bruno's gang is now the one that is looking after the boss's daughter. And so they weren't really able to keep that secret for very long.
No.
So it looks like there's already going to be some enemies coming after them. But yeah, it was a good episode. Like always, we're kind of in a formulaic moment for the part because we're kind of being introduced to each member of Bruno's gang, and with that we're being introduced with their stand, and so the plot kind of calls for each one of them to be separated from the group and then left alone with an enemy that they have to take down on their own. And I'm sure next week we're going to get like the backstory of Narancia like we did for Abakio and Mista. But something I really do appreciate with this adaptation is the kind of flair that they give to the reveals of the main character's stands. I think at this point, like especially in part 5, both Araki and David Productions kind of understand how much the fans look forward to the main character's stand reveals. And so it's not just kind of like they bust it out whenever you meet them now. It's like we get a few episodes of them just being themselves, and then they're thrown into this conflict. And then when they bust out their stand for the first time, it's this big triumphant moment. Like when
Cool.
Narancia busts his out, like there's this crazy cinematography, like the sound design's great, like everything kind of picks up for that one moment, and then you kind of just get to see them be a badass for a little bit. And we kind of saw the same thing before. Like I mentioned, Abakio Stan gets the really cool treatment with like the sound design of the tapes being rewound.
Yeah.
And then
That was really
Mista
cool.
gets like the really wacky introduction to his stand. Like you see his 6 sentient little pistols that he has to like feed food for them to be like motivated to work, which is really good for his character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a formulaic approach, but I'm not really complaining because like I said, it's such a grand reveal for these characters when they bust out their stands. And also Trish's reveal was also really satisfying. I think something that I've always faulted JoJo's on was its female characters. Araki kind of had this bad habit of kind of pigeonholing them into supporting roles or damsels until maybe part 4. But Trish's introduction was kind of right off the bat. You kind of got a sense of this woman who doesn't really take any shit. Like Narancia, when he first meets her and she's like in disguise, he tells her to kind of shoo, like get away. We're kind of dealing with something. And she's like, "Oh, that's interesting. Is your name Toilet?" And he's like, "Wait, what?" And she points at the sign for the public restroom. And she's like, "If your name was Toilet, that means this place belongs to you and you can tell me to get off your property. Otherwise, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want." And then Narancia kind of gets pissed off and pulls a knife on her. And then immediately she's able to kind of like bend his arm back and have the knife stab him in the face. And like, it was interesting to see like finally a female character shows up and they're kind of kicking ass in their own way. And without spoiling anything, being someone who's read part 5, like this trend definitely continues for her characters. So,
Good.
and well into part 6 as well. So that's something I really found to be a big positive for this episode and for JoJo's as a whole. But yeah, solid episode. I mean, no surprise, the show's been great from start to present. So I only expect good things.
Awesome. Yeah. I always look forward to your discussions about JoJo's because it's such a, I'm not going to say the word, but crazy show.
Yeah, don't do it.
So yeah, it's always fascinating to hear that stuff. And as it says, it's a lot of like fan service in the way that it's like it's treats for the fans in that sense.
Mhm.
So that's great. So moving on to another show that you've been watching yourself, Karakuri Circus. I know you've been kind of off and on. I think I say that every single damn week about the show. So how was this
Yeah.
episode?
I don't blame you for saying off and on because I think I complained about it last week as well, but
Yeah.
this week was actually a pretty decent episode, and it's just making me more and more confused. Like I don't know if I'm enjoying my time watching this or not, but I don't know. I think this episode has finally kind of gotten back on the tracks. I think we had the first few episodes, they kind of tried to trick us into thinking the plot was Masaru's family is gunning after him to get this inheritance. And so that happens for about 3 episodes. And then once that ended, we were kind of shown the real plot, which is what I discussed about, the Midnight Circus and the Automata and everything like that. And the introduction of it was a little shaky, but I'm kind of hopeful that now that they're on the real plot, maybe they're going to stay on track because this episode kind of drew me back in. We're still doing what they did the last 2 episodes where they jump between the story of Masaru and Shirogane, and then between that and the story between Gi and Narumi, who are on their way to defeat the Automata. And so the two of them are on a plane. I don't know where they're headed. Maybe they know where the headquarters are or something, but um, the plane basically gets hijacked by these Automata, and Narumi and Gi have to take care of them. Uh, Gi kind of tries to pass himself off as this uncaring, emotionless kind of robot, kind of like Shirogane did in the beginning of the series.
Hmm.
But as the encounter kind of unfolds, we begin to see that he's got quite a bit of humanity in him as well, kind of like Narumi does. Like the kids get taken as hostages, and then he's very quick to say, "Hold on, take me as a hostage instead, because I'm a much more valuable one. Like I'm one of the maybe 2 or 3 people who can take down your organization. So let the kids go, and then take me into custody." And kind of just banking on Narumi's ability to defeat the Automata and kind of get him out of this predicament. The fight on the plane was actually pretty fun as well. Like the animation and the choreography wasn't as bombastic as the first fight with Narumi and the Automata was, but it was still pretty fun, and the escalation was ridiculous. Like there was there was a point where Guy was literally flying his puppet like a mech outside of the plane, having this like aerial battle with these robotic clowns in the sky,
Right.
and it just got it got absolutely insane. But the way this show has just been shoving like weird plot points down my throat, I'm kind of numb to it all. So I'll just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Um, but his encounter kind of ends with him presumably sacrificing himself. He kind of flies his puppet off with one of the automata who is planning to self-destruct. And he kind of flies him far, far away, and then the two of them kind of explode off camera, which kind of leads me to believe that in an episode or two, he's just going to be right back. I mean,
Yeah.
Narumi lived through a fire that burned his entire arm off, and he's just fine. So I don't think he's going
Clean.
anywhere.
Cleanly.
A clean arm.
Clean arm.
Yeah, the episode ends with we jump back to Masaru and Shirogane, and they're putting on their first circus show because that's kind of what they've been doing up until now. They've just been putting on their own little show, trying to live a happy life. And of course, the plane that Narumi's on crash lands like basically in their backyard, which is a huge coincidence. But again, I'm just sitting back and taking this all without tearing it apart like I was before.
Yeah.
Um, and Narumi kind of makes it a rule to not be seen by Shirogane and Masaru, which is kind of interesting. He's kind of cloaked in the debris and the dust and everything that, was caused by the crash. And all he really allows himself to do is quickly pat Masaru on the head before he runs off to take care of the automata on the plane. And it's kind of interesting because we kind of were led to believe that all Narumi wanted was to just kind of reunite with this kid that he really cares about. But now he's kind of got this greater mission. He's got to take care of these other kids who are being stricken with the disease that he had. and he feels indebted to. And so it's kind of interesting to see that he's kind of cutting these two away. I wonder if it's because he's ashamed of the kind of person he has to become to take care of this disease, or maybe he just doesn't want to endanger them, or maybe both. But I don't know. That kind of dynamic has gotten me a little more invested in the series, especially the dynamic between him and Guy. They kind of have this buddy cop dynamic going on where both of them kind of despise each other, but at the same time, they're slowly learning to respect each other. And it kind of makes me hopeful that Guy comes back because I finally found a character that I like as much as I do Narumi. So hopefully they don't kill him off really quickly because I'm starting to get a little more invested and I'm hoping that continues later. But for now, I'm hopeful.
That's good. That's good because yeah, you were kind of iffy on the show, but that's good to hear that there's at least something to look forward to. All right. Well, on that note, we'll move on to the next show that we can talk about, and for this one, I'll have Deanna pick it up since you've been talking for a bit there, Dusha. So, Deanna, how was this episode of Radiant?
So I literally threw up my hands when that one mummy-looking dude appeared near the end of the episode. Because the other day we were looking at the manga section and saw the second volume cover of the show, and then this guy was on it, and then we joked that we haven't even met him yet. So to see him now, like I think that's a good sign that we're finally going back to the plot. so, um, so yeah, this episode it was focused on Dragonov, the Inquisitor, and he is my second favorite character. First being Alma. I really liked how this episode like shed some light on people being human first before any other label, so like being a sorcerer or an inquisitor. So the show continues to play with the idea that not everyone is good or bad and that they have their own intentions and not one person represents the whole group. So obviously like if a man can cook then he's automatically my fave. So and yeah, the episode just shows how different of a captain Dragonov is. Like he really cares about his crew. He cooks for them and like even though they do tasks such as like repairing the ship or cleaning the deck, it's still like I feel like they've established how his men respect. Even though there was like this one new guy who had different feelings about Dragonov, but of course at the end he was like, "Oh yeah, uh, I really like being here and being a soldier for Dragonov." So we didn't really see much of the trio, which I'm kind of relieved about, but seeing how Yaga's teaching Seth about the Inquisitors and how like not all of them are bad, it was nice to see because Seth needs to learn these lessons from someone, even especially if Alma isn't around. And then Doc, just being Doc, his undying love for Miss Melba, he's like drinking coffee even during a storm, so
Hello?
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 Oh,
oh, sorry.
Oh, that was awkward.
I should say I'm done.
Oh, yeah, you
I
probably
was worried your
should.
internet
It's
cut
super
out.
awkward sounds. That's how we roll here.
But yeah, I really did appreciate the POV switch. Like, it was nice to see the focus get taken off the three main characters, which is kind of concerning for me to say. Like, I shouldn't be sad when we return to the main characters. It just feels like every time we're with them and in the town of Artemis, like there's no plot development. It's just kind of like these wacky adventures that's going on. Um, I'm really happy that this episode finally gave us some world building. Uh, Radiant always kind of drew me in because of the setting of it all, like the way the places looked, the way the world worked, especially with all this prejudice towards sorcerers and what they call heretics. That's kind of what drew me in addition to the designs. And so I'm kind of glad we're going back to that. Like I already want to know what's going on in like Rumble Town where they say there's like a grand collecting of heretics from this captain Conrad, I think they said. We learned Dragonov used to be his superior, but they kind of had like a falling out. So they're kind of setting up these future plot points, which is what I've been looking forward to for a very long time. And it just kind of pisses me off because the preview of the next episode seems to be going back to Seth and we're having a broom race. And it's like, I don't I don't care. Like, I don't want to go back to Seth anymore. Like, stick with Dragunov or even the recruit that just got brought into his crew. Like, I just want to see more of this world and more of the characters like that bandaged up guy that you were talking about. But I don't know. Maybe I mean this is going to be a longer series, right? It's 2 core.
It's 21 episodes.
Okay. So I don't know. Even for a 2 core, like we've gone quite a few episodes without any kind of plot development. Um but yeah, it was a decent episode. One thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was the fact that the fight with the nemesis was off screen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Me too.
Yeah, like for a shonen, there's surprisingly little action in battles. Like everything has kind of been taken care of off screen, and I feel like one way they really could have gotten me on board with Dragunov as a character if I wasn't already was to see him take down this nemesis and kind of learn to respect him in conjunction with this new recruit of his. I think I would have identified more with that. But it was still a good episode nonetheless. I'm a little bummed we're going back to Seth and Melly and Doc, but I don't know. This has kind of been a low C rating for me from start to finish, except for the one episode with the Alma, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's been disappointing.
Oh, well, that's disappointing. So yeah, well, then we can kind of swing things the other way with the show that I've been enjoying nonstop, and that's of course Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. So yeah, in this episode, we get a bit of a Freaky Friday situation where Mai swaps bodies with her younger half sister, who is part of an idol group known as Sweet Bullet, which is a great name for an idol group. Fortunately, or unfortunately, neither sister has any friends and are both unapproachable, and so they can kind of get away with going to each other's like respective schools as a result of that. At the same time, though, Nautica, who is the younger sister, looked up to Mai. It turns out that she has an inferiority complex due to how her parents were upset anytime Mai was picked over her for any acting roles growing up. Mai, of course, being the main heroine of the story. They would say things to her like, "Why can't you do what Mai-chan can do?" And so, yeah, it's that kind of parenting that's awful. And so the puberty syndrome stepped in and made them swap bodies after she heard after Nautica heard that Mai was returning to showbiz after she was just starting to get a foothold. So while Mai was out on her break, she finally was able to kind of step outside of her sister's shadow, her half sister's shadow, and make her debut. But now it's just this is kind of going to ruin it. So she hates her. But Mai is also upset with Nautica because Mai's father, married Nautica's mom before leaving her as well. So Nautica's kind of a reminder of the pain she feels as a result of that abandonment. But they both, of course, have gone through the same thing. Unfortunately, during a commercial shoot, Nautica, who is inside of Mai's body, hyperventilates due to the pressure she was under. So she she passes out while on set. And so, yeah, it's kind of serious moment. But, it's just yet another episode of how amazing that the show's been. It's not totally unlike like Kokoro Connect, like another show that was like that, where they present all these different psychological situations that they have to sort of deal with. And so in this case, it's they're swapping bodies, which is pretty serious. And Mai's kind of taken the best to it. She's like, she never sang or performed before, so she's like, they show shots of her practicing and things like that to get used to that, going out jogging so she can build up the energy she needs to be on stage, while Nautica is showing during her little interviews and photo shoots and things like that. So I thought it was pretty fascinating that they portrayed it just like they wouldn't just talk about it, they actually showed them learning how to be comfortable in each other's bodies, which is interesting. I also point out that once again, because Nautica's a new character, she's the blonde-haired girl on the left on this image, of course, and Mai obviously being on the right. But just like before, they had yet another new ending with her singing the ending song, which once again is a pretty cool thing that they do in this. Like every time, like I mentioned before, anytime they change the perspective, the focus on a different character in the anime, they have them sing the ending song with a shot of them walking along the beach and everything. So it's a great touch and something I always appreciate them doing. And yes, this show continues to deliver a lot in the in the emotion department. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the next episode, that they try to figure out how they're going to kind of cope with their mutual distaste with one another. So that's going to be kind of a cool looking, cool twist. I can't wait to see that. So yeah, once again, you guys talk about the shows that you're not having fun with. Rascal always delivers, and I'm happy about that. So this is why I only have 4 shows I'm watching, or at least 5. I mean, I have 5, but 4 for this week. It's like I only want to watch the good stuff. I'm sorry, I can't put up with the bad stuff.
I just don't want to drop down to like one show this season.
You have more than one show you like, though. I'm sure. Just
That's
looking at your
true.
list, yeah, you're liking more than just that, for sure. So, which
I
leads us
started
to
off with so much more.
I had more shows than you did, I think, or did you have more than? I think actually you had more than I did at the start of this, and
Probably.
yeah, I've only dropped a few shows since then. So next season, I think I'm going to be a little bit more, strict about the stuff that I'm watching. A little more like, I want to make sure that I'm not getting stuck with that. But then when you see all the previews for the next season shows, it's like I'm going to be screwed. And next spring we might have My Hero Academia. So yeah, it's not going to get any better. There's still going to be a lot of shows worth watching, and it'll come down to where it's at the halfway mark, like it's been for some of you guys. So that leads us into the next show that seems to be doing all right, and that's Run with the Wind. And so for this one, I'll have Nushal, you pick up from here on this one then.
Okay. I watched this one kind of early in the week, so forgive me if I forget some plot points, but uh I think we're on the heels of Kakeru just telling Prince to quit the team if he doesn't improve his times. And there is a track meet coming up, and I think there's only 5 runners from their team that are going to be running, and it's Shindo, the twins, Yuki, and Masa. And is it Masa or Masa? I always forget his name.
I think it's Musa.
Musa? Damn it. Anyway, those are the 5 that are running. And Kakeru, we've established before, is very burnt out right now. He thinks he needs to be running at every opportunity he's given. And so hearing that he wasn't tasked with running this meet, he gets very upset. And there's more of a back and forth between him and Haiji's ideas of what it means to run and improve at something you love doing. Um, but this kind of changes when Kakeru watches the 5 of his team members run. As they're running, he sees that they're genuinely putting in all of their effort and doing the best that they can. And for the first time, we see him actually start screaming and cheering for his team, which is something the reserved character really hasn't done up until now. And there was this really, really endearing scene with like Haiji, Prince, Kakeru, and everyone just kind of waving their arms like idiots and screaming like madmen for their team. Especially Haiji, who's like windmilling his arm like a madman, like screaming, "It's the last lap! You can do it! You can do it!" It was a really, really funny but also powerful moment, and like you even see Prince in the background, like kind of just whispering, not really screaming. Um, but yeah, the episode basically concludes with them kind of celebrating. I don't think any of them get a formal record, so it's not like any of them really are ready to run the marathon yet. But just the fact that they've improved and that they were able to finish the race was kind of a victory in itself. But Kakeru is still kind of reserved. He's not sure that they can still handle this marathon, and he's kind of going off on Haiji until Haiji suddenly collapses. We established earlier in the episode that his vision was kind of going blurry. I don't know if it's something involving his surgery or if it's just kind of fatigue. But he finally collapses at the end of the episode, and that's kind of where we leave off, which is a very dramatic conclusion that I wasn't expecting. I was just expecting this to be all like, oh, we need to get better at running. I wasn't expecting like illnesses and characters passing out and being sent to the hospital. So, without getting too bogged down in details, Deanna, what did you think?
I think we can see Haiji fainting as like a sign of physical and mental exhaustion because he's been looking after these guys like a mom, but not really looking after himself. And also, I feel like maybe like he hasn't fully recovered. And then we also saw a scene of him. I think it was the week before where he was going through physical therapy. So maybe he wasn't like ready to get into racing again, but I don't know. It worries me. So,
Yeah.
do you still believe someone's going to end up leaving the team?
Probably not. I personally I think I would like it if someone left, but I don't know, probably not. It seems like they're building everyone up to be genuinely enjoying running.
Hmm. And I just really like the scene how Haiji was chasing after Nico senpai in an apron
Yeah,
with the bento. So it was just so funny.
he's definitely their
Um,
mom.
yeah. So yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna leave, and I knew Prince wasn't going to quit. Like he's gonna stay. So
Yeah. Do you think Kakeru kind of got off scot-free for what he said the last episode?
I, it's so complicated because it just feels like the other guys they're very like they brush off a lot of things. Like they don't really want to focus on the drama. Like
Mhm.
so, but maybe he did. I don't know. What did you
I don't
think?
know, cuz like he said it and then everyone was mad at him and then there was a moment where everyone learned what he said and there was even a line from Nico where he's like, "We don't blame you." And it's like you kind of should.
It is his fault. I mean,
He's
be
kind of being
real.
a huge dick, like, and I know he's probably gonna develop and, take it back, and Prince is gonna run, and everyone's gonna have a good time, but there's, like, many moments in this show where people do things and say things that they really should be receiving their comeuppance for, and it just kinda doesn't happen,
Hmm.
and I don't know, I can't really tell if these are plot points that are considered resolved or if it's something they're gonna bring up later, but I always feel like some of these characters are just getting off with doing and saying things they have no right doing. But I mean, aside from that, the characters are still a lot of fun. Like the way these characters just kind of joke around and laugh and prop each other up is very endearing. And I think that is going to be their end goal more so than the marathon is just learning to support each other and accepting that everyone runs at their own pace and everyone improves at their own pace and it's not really one ideal result.
Mm. Yeah, which is important, of course, because otherwise, no one will want to do it because it won't be fun anymore. So cool.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So moving from that, we got another show that I can speak on, along with you, Nusha, of course, and that's SSSS.Gridman. Another amazing episode. Oh my god, this show got really
Mhm.
dramatic pretty quick here. So, this episode picks up from last episode, where Akane had lost yet again to Gridman, but Alexis, who's the main baddie, who's giving Akane all the powers, expresses that she is still all powerful. And so there's a situation that arises immediately where Akane is yet again in Hibiki's room. But this time, Hibiki doesn't remember Akane at all. That's right, he has yet another a case of amnesia. Even more bizarrely, Akane has taken the position of Rika. So like instead of seeing like in the first episode, this is like a lot of this stuff is like the same shots from the first episode and a couple other ones as well, where the first person that Hibiki sees when he wakes up is Rika. In this case, is of course it's Akane, but the dialogue is different. And this time Hibiki and Akane are dating, which I'm jealous of Hibiki. So Akane even changes Akane even changes her entire backstory. Whereas before, Rika and Akane had always been friends, they only meet during school orientation for the first time. Uh, and while Utsume and Akane meet the same way, where they meet each other inside of a bookstore, and Utsume is reading his kaiju magazines, stuff like that. Akane, they both nerd out about that. Um, they continue to talk about that. So we cut back to what is in fact the real world and find out that all three are actually passed out and only going through these paces in their dreams. It appears Akane is basically presenting her ideal world where Gridman doesn't exist and everyone was friends with her. That's kind of what she's been wanting to do all this time anyway. That's why she kind of goes in and clears the city out, clears everybody out, so that she can start all over and make sure that everyone's her friend. They want to make sure that, it's like you can be friends with her, hang out, chat about kaiju, get more intimate in some cases. So by the end, it they all wake up as a result, and they find out what's going on. They are smarter than that, which I'm very happy with. You know, they didn't get stuck in the world, that they each come to their own realization. It's not like one character was weak enough where they thought that they can get completely lost and they had to be forced the way back. It's that they all came to their own individual realization that it's all a dream, and they all come together to fight the kaiju that's kind of making all of this happen, where it materializes outside of the dreamland, and Gridman defeats it. But of course, Akane at this point, because everyone has kind of abandoned her, she's lost all hope. And what we are left off with is Rika wants to reveal something important to the group about Akane, and that's where things end. So yeah, it got pretty dramatic at the end, pretty serious, because Akane kind of... This is a shot that we've got of her and the image on the video, where she basically falls off a building, lands perfectly, which is pretty fancy, but then she kind of, kind of drags herself, like she just kind of lumbers off into the fog, and that's the last we see of her in the episode. So it's clear that, it's huge. It's a big problem right now, for obvious reasons. So, Nusha, what do you think about this episode? I thought it was another great episode.
I really, really like this episode. I think you and I joked multiple times that there's no redeeming Akane, but lo and behold, they're gonna try.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think they did, personally.
yeah, I think they did too. I think they're trying to go the route that maybe, or maybe this is just speculation, but maybe she was too self-conscious to maybe talk and meet these people that she always admired and wanted to be friends with.
Oh,
And
no
so,
doubt, no doubt. She's super
yeah,
lonely, apparently, so yeah.
exactly. And like someone comes and gives her like this godlike power to just make the world in the way that she wants it. And so it's so much easier to manipulate people into being her friend and going out with her than actually being a decent person and trying to better yourself, you
Oh,
know?
no doubt. She's super naive. That's as much
Mhm.
much as evident as everything else that's happened so far. So yeah.
Yeah, it's believable, like
Yeah.
given what school is like, especially at this age, like you're very self-conscious and convincing yourself that you're worth someone's time is very hard sometimes. And so given that power, it's like I feel like a lot of people would do the same thing. It's very easy to fall into that way of thinking. But yeah, I really do like what they did with her character. I got big Planet with vibes from this episode with like the dreaming and everything. Like everyone's
Ah,
given this
I remember that episode.
ideal way of living, and like why would you want to wake up, everything's perfect here, but everyone realizes that this isn't real life and that they need to go and actually face the world and all the duties and responsibilities that they have in the real world. Um,
And
so yeah, that was a nice touch.
yeah, and it felt very genuine. Like that's kind of hard
It
to portray
did.
at times, but especially between Akane and Utsume, when they just wanted to like geek out, hit up a convention, buy a bunch of kaiju stuff, and just talk about that all day. And with Rika, she just wants to be friends with her, and with Hibiki, it's
Mhm.
that she wants to have a boyfriend, that kind of stuff. So it's
See,
yeah,
that's the crazy part is like she literally has all the tools and personality traits and whatever to be like good friends with Utsumi. Like it's all there, but
yeah.
she convinces herself that she's not good enough and that she has to go through these crazy manipulative routes to create this relationship she wants when she really doesn't.
She's a
Like I
tryhard,
posted it just like,
to say the least.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But I also really like what they did with Auntie this episode.
Oh yeah, he was like, okay, I have to defeat him so I can fight Gridman. Sure, I'll go do it. He just runs off, yeah, and just says, okay, I
Just
will.
phases through. But yeah, and also the fact that they don't want to fight him because they see him as not just like a monster, but something living with a heart that's actually
Yeah,
sentient. So
something
it's easy
human.
to see where they're going with his redemption arc.
Yeah, we'll see, because yeah, he just kind of screams that, no, I'm a kaiju. It's like, what does that mean
Hmm.
though? In this world. So it's gonna be interesting. I mean, so far he's only been treated like human. So yeah, I'm curious to see if that means he's kind of lose it and go off the deep end, and try to make sure that people get that he's a kaiju. But we'll see. I'm also wanting to know where the girl kaiju is at, because she hasn't been seen since
Oh
that
yeah.
episode. So. And of course, there's the city overhead. I don't know much longer this show's going, but I have a lot of questions, and I hope that they address all of those. And obviously, we left on a very important cliffhanger, so we'll see what
Hmm.
Rika has to say about Rakane. But yeah, probably one of the best Studio Trigger shows so far, which is saying a lot, and has me hopeful for premiere when that premieres.
Hmm.
All right, so leading to the next, we're almost about to wrap it up here. We got Tsurune, and that's of course Deanna, since I dropped it. So, how was this episode, Deanna?
We finally see the rival school, Kirisaki, and then our serious arrow boy, Shu. Um, so their coach only wants the best to participate in the prefectural tournament. So you can already tell the dynamic with this school is vastly different to Kazemai. Also, the senpais at Kirisaki, they don't appreciate their kohais. They tell Shu to purposely miss so that the third years can participate since it'll be their last year. But of course, Shu and the twins, who are all first years, they don't surrender and are announced to participate. So Shu doesn't seem like he holds a grudge against Minato. I think he still values Minato as like a former teammate and he thinks about him sometimes, but he also doesn't take too kindly to the twins like trash talking people who aren't good at what they do. So I have high hopes for Shu to be more than he lets on and that he's not just some rival. And then we also get some backstory on Masaki, which was revealed during a date with Tommy Sensei.
Nice.
So they're having a drink, and Masaki says that his master or sensei was actually his grandfather, whom he was close to. But then he starts talking about wanting revenge in a way that's like not really negative, but more so of like he wants to surpass him or forgive him or forget him. Like he's still not sure. Like he's still trying to figure it out. But Masaki, he liked his grandfather as his grandfather, but not as a teacher, because I guess he was very strict and didn't really have a lot of compliments to give to Masaki. So apparently, Tommy Sensei called Masaki to coach 2 times, but the first time Masaki refused, and then the second time he accepts. And I think this is after he meets Minato. So,
Ooh.
yeah. And then Kaito, he wants to learn how to turn his bow, but Masaki says it's a result, not a goal. And I guess like turning the bow means like this when you're the hand that's holding the bow, it like shifts to the side a little bit after you release the arrow. So he sees Ryohei doing this naturally and he like wants to learn how to do it. And I guess that means he isn't so confident about his skills. And so I thought it was great to see that he actually admires his teammates' strengths rather than focusing on their weaknesses because that was what he was doing before. So I think overall the show is getting better. It just took some time. So yeah. I know you dropped it early on, so
Yeah,
but
yeah. It's that it's like a lot of the stuff can be a little predictable, and yeah, it was kind of dragging its feet, and we're already like near the end of the first season. So yeah. That's all I got to say about that because I think if I talk more about that, it's going to bum people out. So I don't want to say that. But yeah, and as long as you're enjoying it, that's good enough to be talking about it on this podcast. So yeah. Well then, I'll lead it with the final episode. I'll cap things off here. And that's with Zombieland Saga. So, yeah. First off, let me say what the episode title was, and that is "Though my life may have ended once by some twist of fate, I have risen, and if song and dance are to be my fate, then carrying the memories of my comrades in my heart as I sally forth shall be my saga."
that's the title.
That's the title of the episode. It takes up 3 lines on the Crunchyroll page.
Lord.
That's yeah. And
Wow.
that's just it's like a really good trailer for a movie that you get all of that in just the trailer and don't have to see the movie anymore. But yeah, so the setup here is that the girls are practicing at a park, but the new leader of the gang that Saki, who is the biker chick in this group, a former biker gang leader kind of thing, before she died, she used to lead this group, and the new leader shows up, trying to take control, trying to maintain control of their existing turf. And so it turns out that the mother of that new gang leader was Saki's old friend. Her life of crime was basically saved as a result of her daughter being born. She kind of gave that life up so that she could raise her child. And her daughter, though, wants to continue on her mother's legacy instead. So that's kind of the angle that they're portraying here. However, the new leader of the rival gang that Saki used to fight with also appears and challenges the daughter to a race. which is the same type of race that Saki died in, which is a game of chicken, basically to the edge of a cliff. So I am still kind of confused how her old friend still didn't recognize her, because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. Maybe it was about 10 years, based on the age of the child. Maybe a little bit older than that, but still, it's like it wasn't that long ago. She has the exact same hairstyle with the same hair color. Even for a moment there, she turns around and the mom is like, I recognize your face. And she's like, I don't know who that is, who the Saki person is. And yeah, I was like, come on, a huge stretch of the imagination here. It's like you really gotta like suspend your disbelief to make it through this show sometimes. But I also say that once again, there's a performance that's at the end of the show that she kind of dedicates to the mom and to the game itself, that Saki does with the rest of the group. And so I was happy that once again they didn't use CGI for the dance performances, just like the last episode. So it appears that they decided to cut the budget early, only to improve on the show towards the end. It's a weird approach, but it was another strong episode. So yeah, I hope that from now on we don't use the god-awful CG for their dance performances, because that was shit, real shit. And yeah, these 2D animated performances are very well animated, and I'm just enjoying those. So yeah. Yeah, good stuff. So, on that note, we can lead ourselves into our anime rewind, which is what we're taking a look at, Neon Genesis Evangelion, of course, episodes 7 and 8. And so let me pull this up here so I can talk about what the episodes were. So episode 7, I'll pull up our image from that. There we go. All right, so in this episode, Ritsuko, who is the chief scientist, basically the blonde-haired woman, excuse me, she explains more about the more classified details about Second Impact, including what the angels are. They all showed up from Antarctica, and the mission of the Evangelions to defeat them. But there's this rival organization of Nerve that decides to build this giant prototype robot called Jet Alone. It's meant to be like an alternative to the Evangelions that this new robot line is meant to supersede. But unlike the Evangelion units, which rely on external or limited battery power, the Jet Alone has an onboard nuclear reactor and can thus function indefinitely without external power, which we'll kind of see more about that in the next episode, that reliance on external batteries. So, however, during the first public test of Jet Alone, it goes out of control and starts marching towards a nearby city with its reactor building to a meltdown. So it's like running really fast on the ground. But Shinji is able to keep the robot at bay in his Evangelion, while Misato, as you can see in this image here, gets inside and shuts down the reactor inside of it. So some revelations here regarding the nature of the Second Impact that happened 15 years prior during the timeline of the show as it is now. So I'll start with Nusha on what you thought about episode 7, A Human Work.
I'm happy that we got another very Misato-based episode.
Yes,
she's easily been one of the best characters so far. And so seeing her kind of take the spotlight again was very nice. Real quick, I wanted to point out, Zach, you mentioned a lot of like parallel shots, from like beginning to endings of episodes.
Yes.
And there was that one where all the kids are looking down from the school and they're like recording as she comes out of her car and she throws up like the peace sign. And then as she's entering like the rampaging mech, and Shinji's kind of screaming out for her, she looks up and like you can see through Ava's camera that she throws up the same peace sign.
Yes.
I thought that was a pretty cool little callback.
Yes.
And like I think you mentioned that like the first week when we started watching, and I'm like actively looking out for them now, and I love them every single time.
Yeah, if people didn't catch that one, it's in the first episode. Actually, it's like the second episode when Misato grabs Shinji's head from above when he tries to like smart talk her when they're at home about her drinking all the time. It's the same shot of when the angel grabs the Evangelion unit's head before it throws it away. So yeah. It's these visual references are great to look at, because it's always great on a second viewing to kind of catch that stuff that you didn't catch in the first, but actively looking for it in the first watch is also a good idea, because it immediately gives you that more appreciation for the show. So
definitely. Speaking of appreciation for the show, I'm really, really liking the relationship they're developing between Shinji and Misato. It's very quickly becoming like the emotional core to the show for me, at least. Like how everyone idolizes this woman, but she kind of shows this side of herself that no one else can see to Shinji, and everyone kind of wishes that they were in his shoes because of it. Um, but yeah, it's nice to see that she genuinely cares for this kid who, in her eyes, really doesn't have anyone. And for that reason, I was also like on the edge of my seat when she was inside the mech and like the thing was looking to explode. Like the last thing I wanted was for her to die. So I'm glad she made it out. Um, but yeah, aside from that, just I think I mentioned world building a lot this week, but they kind of did it as well here, where it's like we got to see how other nations are dealing with this threat of angels. And so it's neat to see that it's not just Ava's. It's like other people are trying to come up with their own solutions that aren't so contingent on hormonal 14-year-olds piloting mechs. So it's nice to see that everyone else is coming up with their own plans for it. But yeah, good
Exactly.
episode.
Exactly. That's definitely the case there. So, what'd you think about it, Deanna?
Yeah, this episode just solidifies how badass of a character Misato is, but like at the same time it concerns me because we know what happens to badass side characters.
Stop it.
I also enjoyed the scene with Ritsuko when she was like holding her ground against the rival contractor for the jet
Oh,
alone.
burning the sample. Yeah, that was pretty great too.
Yeah, I was like, yes, let women talk at the table. So, also like I guess the repetitive scene of Shinji and the penguin eating breakfast is supposed to show that Shinji has established this normal life with Misato since
Mhm.
becoming an Eva pilot. And then it also shows how Misato has a really strong liver.
Yeah, she wakes up drinking that stuff. So yeah, it's pretty great.
And then obviously Gendo is up to something, and I don't like anything like that this man does. Like everyone but Misato and the kids are like in on the scheme.
You,
So
yeah, you should probably keep a lookout on Gendo. But that's to be that's to be expected because so far, like, can you trust anything he's done so far? No. So why should you continue to trust him in anything going forward? Because there's no reason to. But also he's protecting the city, so that's also important to point out. But yeah, hearing you guys talk about these characters and stuff like that, it's like I can't wait. But yeah, that leads us into episode 8, which is the one that a lot of people are excited about. It's that she's finally here, Asuka, with the Pacific Fleet. So Masato brings Shinji and his friends, Toji and Kensuke, on a flight to a United Nations carrier battle group, which is transporting Evangelion Unit 02 and its fiery its German pilot, Asuka Lanley Soryu, to Japan. So escorting Asuka to Japan is Masato's old boyfriend, Kaji. So in the middle of some of all this going on, there's this massive angel known as Gageo begins attacking the fleet, or Gagiel, I think it's also pronounced. So Asuka thinks that she's able to fight it with Unit 02, despite all the warnings. She's like, "No, I'm gonna do it anyway." So she boards it and brings Shinji on board so that he can witness firsthand about her pilot ability. And so she hops from ship to ship until she gets to the main one, but unfortunately, the angel drags both of them inside of Unit 02 underwater, and Masato decides to kill it by lodging 2 of the battleships that have already been sunken, shove it in its mouth, and fire their weapons into it. So this, of course, destroys the angel as a result, and it's revealed that both Shinji and Asuka broke their synchronization records, which I thought was a really cool touch there. It's that, they did their best, and that's because they worked together. And all we also get to see is Kaji leaving, and we find out there's something going on between Kaji and Gendo. Don't read episode summaries, by the way, guys, if you haven't watched the show, because there's a big spoiler right there I'm not going to talk about. But Asuka, we also find out, as this shot shows, that she has also transferred to Shinji's class. She is the new student in the class, so that's one of those cliche almost scenes here, but it was also pretty great. So yeah, and to be pointed out, it's that Rei is also in that class. So now it's Rei, Shinji, and Asuka in the same classroom. So that's going to play a big role, as you could imagine. So for this one, then I'll start with Deanna on your thoughts about episode 8.
Politics.
A little bit, yeah, right? The damn captain, yeah.
Wait, so Japan / NERV, they don't have full authority over the Avas?
No, it's that they do. It's that they just like before. It's that they are kind of a subsidiary, and that they can only step in and exercise their authority when it's an emergency. So before that,
Oh.
though, the government and the other naval branches, the other military branches have control. It's like in the first episode, where they were like throwing everything they got at the Angel, like the nuclear weapons and stuff like that, the mine. But then they're like, okay, if you think you can do anything, you go and take control. So yeah, they're kind of like they're like a step below it on the totem pole, despite the fact that they got all this amazing power.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like for Asuka's introduction, it wasn't what I hoped, unfortunately. But like I don't know, just the whole her dress flying up and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like it's just
It's the
but
90s.
her she's giving off really strong tsundere vibes. So
Yes, she is the epitome of the Cinderella. She is the one that popularized it, I would say. But
yeah.
I will say, in her defense, she gets a lot better from that point on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um but yeah, this episode it was good. I always enjoy the ones with angel fights. I'm surprised that the ships didn't sink right away when the Ava just like kept jumping
I
on
know. I was
them.
like, wow, it's really reinforced. I thought the same thing. I was like, impressive.
Also gotta love the portrayal of Americans, always greedy and wanting control. So that was
Mm,
pretty accurate.
yes. Japan knows too well about that too. So yeah, they're like, yeah, we know.
And then at the end, we see or we hear from Gendo about this human instrumentality project and Adam, like first human being. I'm so confused.
Okay, I'm glad.
So
Okay, I thought that was a spoiler, but I forgot that they mentioned it. Yeah, Adam, they do mention that,
yeah,
and yeah.
so I'm kind of like, don't tell me like they're gonna start requiring a boy and a girl to pilot them. So it's kind of like Adam and Eve, because otherwise I'm gonna get war flashbacks of Frank's.
Oh, I will say that this that plays a role going forward, but not in the way. Actually, let me kind of look ahead a little bit to make sure, because it's actually oh. Oh, okay. Next episode actually is gonna show you what they're gonna do. It's gonna be so good. I love the next episode a lot. It's one of my favorite episodes. So yeah, I will say that that kind of does play a role in a sense,
Okay.
but not not in the bad way you would think. I think it's actually a kind of adorable way, a very cute way of they approach it. But that theme that you're talking about does play a role going forward as well. Of course, it's a big part of the show. But
Okay.
not in the sexual way like Darling in the Franks does
Yeah.
it.
I
Kind
don't
of
think
sexual
anything
way,
could be
not that
worse.
way. Yeah, it's not that lewd about it, I would say. It's probably the best way. What'd you think about this episode then, Nusha?
Uh, yeah, it was an interesting one for sure. I think with this, I finally see all the characters I recognize off a glance from Evangelion. From here on, it's probably all going to be people I don't recognize. But yeah, Asuka had a pretty good introduction. I'm really curious about the sync rates that you mentioned earlier, and also how when they were both thinking the same thing, just like open, open, open when they're trying to open the angel's mouth, the Ava's eyes opened, which I thought was interesting because there was that one scene in the first two episodes, I think, where um, Shinji's Ava goes berserk, and then he sees like this weird, almost humanoid looking eye pop up on the side of his mech's face, and he starts freaking out. So I'm wondering what's going on there. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, the show's doing a really good job of setting up a bunch of questions that I really want answered quick, like everything with Adam and whatever nerve is going on or whatever nerve's doing behind the scenes. Like there are a lot of questions I want answers to now, and it kind of keeps me interested and keeps me wanting to watch. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I mean that's that. They also kind of address that it's important that the robot syncs with the pilot themselves, because they mentioned
Mhm.
it's like she's Asuka's in a robot and she's reciting what needs to be said in German, and then Shinji of course is thinking in Japanese, and she's like, why don't you think in German, because they need to of course sync up 1 to 1, and that's why it's even over 40% is impressive, because it's very difficult to be able to get anything close to what may otherwise seem as not a massive number. And so, that's why they changed to Japanese, which is always funny because she's having some trouble with German, and then she switches to her obvious, native Japanese anyway. So it's always funny to hear when they try to pronounce German, and then you just get a bunch of comments in the video of people like, it's nowhere close. So
there's a solid like minute of German too.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was still pretty fun. Pretty fascinating. So yeah, regardless, like I said, episode 9 is coming up here, and I like it a lot. And that's one of the things that gives Asuka more character. I think you'll see. But that'll be up to you guys to decide. So that brings this episode to a close. I just want to point out, guys, that because of things going on with me and RPG site, I'm actually resigning from that site effective today, and so it's very likely meaning that we won't be streaming on the RPG site channels anymore. So that might mean that we have to switch to a totally different channel, maybe a different social media presence, a different website maybe. We're going to figure that stuff out. I still need to talk to it with the powers that be, but regardless, that we'll continue this on as best. We'll hopefully be able to with no problems going on, because all of us obviously want to continue doing this show. I hope, right? Yes. Oh, well, we can replace you, so that's okay. So once again, I'd like to thank Nushaw and Deanna being a part of this. I'm once again Zach, your host. Catch us next time for yet another edition of Anime Review. Bye, everyone.
Later.
See ya.